to me, the guitar is a symbol of music mattering. And we have our charitable wing at Gibson Gives, and that's kind of the motto there, to like make music matter. And it's not about what kind of music, it's not about what instruments you use or don't use, a cappella music, but music needs to matter. And guitar is always, especially here in Nashville, the most visible symbol of that. So my hope and my prayer is that it remains that way, and not necessarily with guitars, but that music matters and it becomes the center of a cultural movement, and certainly an area of joy and empathy and expression. It needs to be all of those things for us to survive, as a culture. So I know that's probably a deep take on it, but that kind of also, for me personally, is why I love the guitar, is because of the community that it creates. And certainly at guitar centers, that's where you find your community, and you go there to find your people, and guitar is a language too. Like, it's a different language, and the people who can speak that language with you are your instant friends.
Welcome to Inside the Noise by Guitar Center, where we interview the artists, the leaders, and the innovators in the music industry. I'm Gabe Dalporto, CEO of Guitar Center. Let's go inside the noise. Hey everybody, Gabe Dalporto here. We've got a really cool behind the scenes view into Gibson today. I'm here with Matt Koehler. Thank you for joining us. Very nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Matt runs all design for all Gibson brands. He is the brains, the genius behind anything you see coming out of Gibson these days. And we get to kind of explore a little bit of what's in his brain, maybe what the future looks like a little bit. And some insight into Gibson. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And I have to say, it takes a village, and the team here that we have is incredible. So I'm just a representative of the team.
I totally appreciate that. Like, I get to call myself CEO, but I actually do very little. Everybody else just does the actual work, and so it's always a team effort.
Yes.
And I know you've just got incredible artisans here, incredible designers here. You've got such a rich history to build off of. And maybe we start there. As I understand it, you're a bit of a history buff, and particularly a guitar history buff. And
very much so.
Tell me a little bit, about your connection to guitars and the history of guitars and the history of Gibson.
Yeah. No, so I kind of, as far back as I can remember, I've been around guitars. So my older brother, he's the oldest, I'm the youngest, he's 13 years older than me. So when I was 5, I was just learning guitar, and he was 18 and shredding Eddie Van Halen. So I was, had a lot of hand-me-downs, and then also one of my uncles managed a guitar shop and in our hometown, and my other uncle was a luthier in our hometown. So it was a lot of different sales and repair and playing. So it's just instruments were everywhere.
So it's in your DNA.
Yeah, I think so. And ironically, I'm also from Les Paul's hometown. So it's like I can't get away from Les Paul. So there's a lot of.
Did you ever meet Les Paul?
I have met Les Paul. Yes.
What a treat.
The stories he has, and also the stories about Les are. You could fill many, many books with just the stories alone. But as a character, just joy is what everybody says about Les. He just emitted joy. I love that.
Great. So you're kind of surrounded by music. Tell me a little bit about just maybe quickly your musical journey, how you found yourself here. Then I'd love to just jump into the Gibson musical journey, and particularly the more modern era of electric guitars and where we're taking that.
Yeah, so I was part of the eBay generation. So I was a really early adopter of eBay, and this is when I was, I think, 13 years old. So I had an eBay account, and maybe I could trade some baseball cards or something on eBay. But I had an experience in my uncle's shop where somebody brought in this old, beat up, grody looking guitar, and one of the guys at the counter said, this guitar is worth more than my house. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? This does not compute. And so I started, learning more and more about that, about value and collectability and the cultural impact of some of these instruments. And that's kind of where I got into the history side. And certainly the history that's most interesting to me has always kind of been Gibson. So I definitely am in the right place. But the reason I love Gibson history is because just the range of different genres and artists and types of instruments. And at one point, Gibson was also making, amplifiers and effects pedals all in one place, so the whole kind of 130 plus years of Gibson history is different year to year, and that's what is so exciting about it. Yeah.
So how did you find your way to Gibson?
So yeah, I had a little tiny guitar shop not far from True Tone Music in Santa Monica. Why I decided to start a guitar business in Santa Monica, apparently I just loved paying rent. But at the time, I was out there working in television for a couple years, and I just found that it wasn't for me. I wanted to take a break, and this was I had a great mentor who basically was like, hey, you've been flipping guitars this whole time. Why don't you just do that for a living? I was like, oh, I guess I could. Yeah, I could formalize this. So I ran that for a couple years, right into the recession. So it was like the best of times, and then it was the worst of times. And it was kind of liquidating. And in the process of liquidating, I had some friends in high places and some clients like Joe Bonamassa and Slash and all these artists who I'd interacted with. And everybody was kind of encouraging me like, hey, try Gibson. Gibson needs you. Mm-hmm. And so Joe very kindly wrote a letter of recommendation, and that kind of opened the door to work at Gibson Custom. And so I started working at Gibson Custom Shop and Gibson Memphis as a category product specialist. Really quickly, I kind of adopted the historic reissue line, so I was right in my wheelhouse with that. And then we went through the bankruptcy protection period, and there was a restructuring. And on the other side of that, what I tell everybody is I just got very lucky. Like I stuck around. I was the survivor. And so I was doing like 12 different jobs, but because I was doing 12 different jobs, I kind of knew where, everything was. I knew a little bit about a lot. And so I became kind of a trusted resource, especially for Cesar and the team for the restructuring. So that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at.
So what I kind of found is luck plays an important role, and the harder you work, the more luck you have.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So
there were definitely some all-nighters that were not so lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. So here you are. I think you might be one of the youngest head designers in the guitar industry. You have this incredible, rich legacy to build off of. Maybe we start off with just that legacy, and tell me, why does everybody want a 1959 Les Paul reissue?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, it was an easy value proposition because I was a huge Jimmy Page fan when I was little, and I wanted to know, what is that guitar that he's using to make those incredible sounds? And so that was my first new guitar purchase, was a 1999 Gibson Les Paul Standard with money saved from selling shoes at the local shoe store. And I realized there's some differences between this guitar and the one Jimmy's using. There's just subtle things. Well, the bridge looks different to me. The truss rod cover looks different. And then I got kind of deep into the real specifics of what makes a 1959. And so that led me to this kind of aspirational quest, not only to get a 59 into my hands somehow, some way, but to start evaluating the 59 reissues. And that brought me into the community. So, and I trust me, I'll answer your question, but this is important background because that Les Paul forum community, especially online, really helped develop the 59 reissue into what it is, both the lore, the legacy of the model, but also to get it more and more accurate over time. So in a sense, the 59 reissue is the model that everybody wants because it's had so much community input. And that's the ironic thing, is it should be a very objective thing to recreate a guitar from 1959.
You would think.
But there's always some area to improve to bring it even closer. And what we're doing today is truly, I never thought any of it would be possible, that we would get as accurate as we are today. But that value proposition, going back to that, it's really easy. Do you want the $500,000 original, or do you want a guitar that's 99.9% as accurate for 1% of the price? So that's when I was selling guitars. That was a pretty easy sales pitch. But also, I think for those who own real 1959s, there's a lot of endorsement. You know, Joe's using them on stage and Slash is using them on stage, and the people who love the original 59s love the reissues just as much.
So what was it about that 59? I mean, now that you've got it to 99.9%, right? Like, what was the special mix of ingredients that made that one of the best guitars ever made?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there were a lot of great guitars made, but none really were adopted by the long line of incredible, legendary musicians like the 1959 Les Paul Standard. And I mean, even one of the first recorded video footage of a 1959 Les Paul Standard being played on stage was George Benson, the jazz guitarist. And he had a 59 with a Bigsby. And then you have Keith Richards on Ed Sullivan. You've got Clapton and the Blues Breakers. You've got Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Billy Gibbons, and so all these artists were playing a 59, and they all kind of wanted a 59 because so and so was playing a 59. And what I learned, speaking with some of these artists, is that the reason they all wanted the 59 was not because of how it looked or how it played so much, it's how it reacted to feedback. So as music was getting louder after the rock and roll revolution, people needed a guitar that could withstand, high wattage amps well, and the Les Paul Standard did a great job of kind of bridging the gap between like the usable artistic feedback and just great tone. So yeah.
So technology presumably hasn't stopped since 1959. We hadn't put a man on the moon yet. We didn't have self-driving cars, so technology progresses, and presumably some things actually get better, with technology. So, bring us into maybe the present, and the products you're making today. Like, how have they evolved? How are they better, maybe, than some of the historical models? Where are you pushing?
Yeah, so I have a lot of experience with vintage instruments, and a lot of the challenges we have making instruments here in Nashville today are the same as that were in Kalamazoo in 1959. So that's not new, but what is kind of helping us achieve more of the kind of the higher quality, the playability elements, it's just really attention to three things. It's aesthetic details, ergonomic details, and sonic details. And the more detail-oriented we are, the better an instrument we can make. So for our people who play Gibson, we know how important it is for something to retain the soul of the 1950s in some ways, but to bring it forward to make it more playable and more in line with the variety and range of music that people want to make today.
So give me some examples of some things you're doing today that you think actually have made significant progress since the 50s and the 60s and that iconic era.
Yeah, I mean, there are two schools of thought. One is that as of the late 1950s, all of the major problems with playing an instrument had been solved. And I somewhat agree with that, in that, innovation needs to solve a problem. And I don't agree with innovation for innovation's sake. And I've learned a lot of what not to do over the years about, what is not really a problem that needs to be solved, or, how can we create instruments that create art in new ways and attract people in new ways. So for me, it goes back to that aesthetic, ergonomic, and sonic area. So aesthetically, we've definitely been pushing the boundaries, and even the stuff in our R&D lab right now, like we're working with like thermal changing finishes and flip-flop finishes.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah,
Wild.
yeah. So we're like trying to push the limit on what is possible with the aesthetics of a guitar. And then the same goes for inlays and purfling and all the accoutrement on a guitar. And then ergonomically, it's not just our neck profiles; it's the range of neck profiles that we offer. So, we've got the chunky 50s style neck profiles, we've got the slim 60s, we also have the modern compound radius, slight V shapes and things like that. But all of this is in service to getting more ability to the player. So that also is like one of those modern advancements is like our modern neck heel. Mm-hmm. So you've got access all the way up to the 22nd or 24th fret. And then sonically, we've got some incredible pickup minds from Jim DeCola. We've got Jared Brandon, who are guys who are just steeped in those details again with the pickups. And we want to push the needle on pickups, not just sonically as well, just aesthetically, ergonomically? Can we recess
When you
them?
think about like your modern pickups, I mean, how does the response profile vary from a more traditional classic version?
So it varies widely, and we try to, especially in our modern pickups, we try to lean more high output than you would have found in the vintage era. And what that gets you is just kind of like more attack, more intensity, and certainly with a high gain amp, it's a good pairing. But you get a lot more nuance out of like a lower output pickup, and it may not work as well out of a high gain amp, but clean or whatnot, you would get a super wide range of sounds. The big problem that I have is choosing which pickups to put in which model. So you have to kind of understand the aesthetic and ergonomic elements to understand what sonic element to choose on that guitar. Who's the player for this model? Who's attracted to this finish? If somebody wants a wild sparkle guitar on stage, my guess is that they might be more excited by some higher output modern pickups. But again, it's just a guess, and at the end of the day, any of our instruments you can make any genre with. So it comes down to taste.
So when you think about a modern instrument and, modern manufacturing processes, like how would you describe the quality control, the consistency versus maybe more some of those original instruments? So
we have our struggles today, and one that came to mind very recently. So I just recently purchased a 1974 Les Paul Custom in original white finish. It's like the Randy Rhoads model. And so I'm looking at this guitar, and it's got just like 15 coats of white finish on it, and it's been scraped really deep. So the stuff that would never pass quality standards today, this guitar had, but it has the collectability, has the association with an artist, and things that make it have enduring value. But white guitars are equally difficult to finish today. It's just that we have really, really high expectations from our players and fans. So white guitars are equally difficult to finish today, and the reason there were so many coats on that original is because even the little specks of dust in the air can get on that white finish, and that trash in the finish does not go away. You need to either paint over it or strip it and repair it. So yeah, the issues are the same. It's the quality expectations along with the consumers of today have just skyrocketed since that era.
Much higher expectations.
Yeah.
It's a great challenge.
Yeah. Right. No, it is, and it's one that is ever present for sure.
If I could kind of maybe think about the Gibson brand specifically, you got this incredible rich history where you were really driving the forefront of innovation in the 50s and the 60s. Now you've kind of, forgive the pun, tuned that in, right? And you're making good progressive improvements, less radical. Where are you pushing the boundaries? Maybe Gibson or other brands, like where do you really want to push things the most?
Yeah, so for us, I view Epiphone as the leader in modern features. And there's a couple of reasons for that. I think we can definitely experiment on small scale in our Gibson Nashville R&D labs and come up with stuff that may or may not be a good fit for a Gibson branded instrument. But with Epiphone, there's no rule. There's no precedent. You've got this great Epiphone history. You've got Inspired by Gibson. You've got Inspired by Gibson Custom. And then we've had more modern franchises like the Prophecy and the opportunity to introduce new franchises like the Futura series. So there's so much more permission to play, I think, with Epiphone, where we don't, fear, backlash from the historic police or anything like that. But also, outside of that, it's the accessibility of Epiphone. We understand that the players who are seeking those modern features and the wild aesthetics and whatnot, those tend to be not just younger players, but players who want a wide arsenal of different instruments, but don't have the pocketbook to buy 12 custom shop instruments. We are able to offer you all sorts of options on the lower end of the price spectrum with every feature that you could ever want.
And that customer seems to be a lot more receptive to change.
Yes.
And we see that in our stores. We did an exclusive with you about this time last year with the Widows, and just blew at them. There were these incredible collars and some really unique features. And that just, I mean, there's kind of a hunger out there for something that's going to, as an artist, differentiate you on stage, I think. So I like to see what you're doing with the Epiphone line. I think it's got a lot of permission to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the Widows are a great example of something that did start at custom, but they weren't widely known, but they were cool. And so our Epiphone team and the guitarcenter teams worked together to bring that to Epiphone in a new way, and now all of a sudden it's another franchise basically, the Widow series. Yeah,
it's pretty fantastic. Yeah. Well, let's kind of talk a second about Custom Shop, because we've kind of danced around that a little bit. You know, I visited the Custom Shop, and just the level of artistry among the people, the luthiers, is just incredible there. It is definitely a higher bar of quality. Tell me about the ideal custom shop experience, you know, from a customer perspective, and, you know, what you're getting for that.
Yeah, the ideal experience is to blow your mind. Like that's we want you to see that attention to detail in every square inch of that guitar. And it's not just about the quality; it's about the ownership experience as well. It's being part of a pretty prestigious club of custom shop owners who are notably some of the most famous artists around the globe. So it's definitely trusted from that element. I mentioned enduring value before. Custom Shop has that enduring value. They're great investments. They're heirloom quality instruments that you can pass down to your kids and your grandkids, and our instruments last forever. You know, this is not a consumable.
Yeah, I think these things will be around 300 years from now.
Exactly, and that's exciting. But I think Custom Shop has the ability to kind of, whether consciously or unconsciously, grant you that heirloom wish. You know, what is it? What statement do you want to make, or what story do you want to carry with you? You know, in your playing career or for your family down the line.
What are some of the more common things, you know, that are requested through Custom Shop?
You know, finish is a big one, and going back to the 1959 Les Paul Standard. So originally those guitars were painted with aniline dye cherry sunburst. And we still use aniline dye today, which is funny because we went away from it very quickly after 1959 because it's very difficult to work with. So another example of the lengths we go to. But so those original sunburst finishes faded out in all sorts of different ways. You know, they put the guitar in the window and the aniline dye, you know, dissolves, but there's a lot of splotchiness under the parts and things like that. So those like fingerprint level details of a given color are now like all the rage at Custom Shop. So people want to see, you know, the red under the pick guard, or they want to see the splotchy brown and green and red of a burst. So that's really interesting to get the request. And we can do color matches. Of course, we've made, you know, hundreds of different burst styles in the past as well. So that's a really popular thing. And then outside of that, it's just really notable, interesting takes on classics. So for example, a Les Paul Special double cut, pretty humble model with dot inlays, but customers have had the imagination to, what does it look like with block inlays and a Les Paul custom headstock and multiply bonding on the body. And I look at this stuff and I get inspired, you know, so I'm thinking like, oh, could be joining the Corps pretty soon, you know, so, but the imagination is really exciting to see out there. So the most popular modifications, I would say, it's either going to be just strictly color, strictly ergonomics, like neck profile, or it's going to be some bling in the form of some, you know, ornate inlays and things like that.
So let's go to the next level and talk about Murphy Lab.
Yeah.
And I always think this is like, it's a little bit mind-blowing, but you take a perfectly good guitar and you beat the tar out of it and you double the price.
Yeah.
So tell me about Murphy Lab.
Yeah,
it's a lot more complicated than that. It's very special, but
yeah, no, it is. And by the way, the people who love an aged guitar are completely distinct from the people who don't. And I don't know if there's a lot of intermingling there, but for myself as a vintage person, I definitely saw the need for Murphy Lab. One, because Tom Murphy was aging instruments one by one with a razor blade, and we had so much demand for that style that we just couldn't fulfill it in years. And we didn't have a good solution for that other than trying to teach more people how to do what he does with a razor blade, which is not an easy thing to do. And in fact, that didn't really work so well. Meanwhile, Tom was kind of working behind the scenes with this Finnish company to develop a top coat of lacquer that would match what a guitar ages like over 60 plus years. So that means the checks, the lines in the lacquer, the way that it flakes, the way that it chips. He wanted it to kind of he wanted it to be malleable enough to work with, but also, uphold enough to withstand the rigors of the road. And really, it was reverse engineered from that 50s finish with the same mentality of, let's reduce the plasticizers, which they were using in the 50s, by the way, but let's try to match, that same experience and the feel that you would get in the 1950s. So that's kind of how it started. The innovation aspect is how we've scaled it. The finish itself is an innovation, but to bring now an entire dedicated space into Custom Shop called the Murphy Lab, where you will see Tom Murphy there with his team, sharing skills, sharing artistic takes, but there's so much storytelling that goes into it. And that's the innovation that I love about Murphy Lab Aging, is the ability to apply stories to a guitar that doesn't have one yet. And I think that's how Tom thinks about it. And it's not as random as just holes in some jeans like some people think, but it does fulfill the same type of thing where you don't want to be the kid on the playground with the brand new white shoes.
What for Murphy Lab, are you starting with like an iconic model in mind, or is this much more tailored? So
we started with a collection of 50 historic reissue instruments that had various levels of Murphy Lab aging. Very quickly, because Murphy Lab was also an option for Made to Measure, our custom order program, people started just building whatever they wanted. So you can get a modern collection Les Paul Custom or Les Paul Access. My brother actually bought one, a Les Paul Access, but aged like a 1959. Mm-hmm. So you can use it in a variety of different ways, but there are definitely some who swear by the sonic enhancement that broken lacquer may or may not provide. I can definitely hear it on acoustic. I don't know so much about electric, but in terms of feel, the biggest benefit of Murphy Lab aging, I always tell everybody, is the treatment of the binding on the neck or the neck itself. So because we don't have to retain that top tier level quality of retaining the lacquer line alongside the neck, we make it look like it's been played for 60 years. And the ramification of that choice is you've got a super broken in, comfortable, oiled baseball glove kind of feel of a neck. And that's not something we were intending to find going in, but now I personally can't not have a Murphy Lab neck. Like, it's the binding roll on that neck it's just so comfortable.
So it's not a Murphy Lab, but my father, when he passed away, gave me his 56 Les Paul.
Oh, wow.
And, oh God, the neck is just, you just can't replace that, right? Like, the feel is amazing. It's so smooth. And it had been played for all of those years, and it has all that history. So I totally appreciate the broken in neck.
And there are a lot of similarities there with, artistic tools of even the tools that Tom Murphy uses. And he's using a railroad spike, that's survived, for decades as his lone tool. And we've replicated that for the other employees within the Murphy Lab. So now everybody has a 3D replicated railroad spike, exactly like Tom.
And piles of keys also,
yes,
right?
Yeah. And belt buckles, yeah.
Yep. I think this would carve a few few valuable gashes.
Vintage? Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what the guitar means to you, and what music means to you, and how do we inspire the next generation?
Yeah, that's a big question, and I'm curious to hear it from you as well. But to me, the guitar is a symbol of music mattering, and we have our charitable wing at Gibson Gives, and that's kind of the motto there, to make music matter. And it's not about what kind of music, it's not about what instruments you use or don't use, a cappella music, but music needs to matter. And guitar is always, especially here in Nashville, the most visible symbol of that. So my hope and my prayer is that it remains that way, and not necessarily with guitars, but that music matters and it becomes the center of a cultural movement, and certainly an area of joy and empathy and expression. It needs to be all of those things for us to survive, as a culture. So I know that's probably a deep take on it, but that kind of also for me personally is why I love the guitar, is because of the community that it creates. And certainly at guitar centers, that's where you find your community, and you go there to find your people. And guitar is a language too. Like, it's a different language, and the people who can speak that language with you are your instant friends, right? And online, you may have fights on forums or in messages on social media or whatever with people, but it's all out of the love and passion for the instrument or for music, and I love that element.
Yeah, and you mentioned community. In a way, finding your community really, I think, helps the inspiration piece of this, right? It's seeing someone do something that inspires you. It's finding others around you, who wants to be involved in music. And Guitar Center, that's really a big piece of. We don't want to just be a place where you can buy instruments. It's very, very important, right? Like, when you walk into a Guitar Center, it's very important. We've got an amazing assortment of instruments, so the next, John or Paul can be inspired, right? But it's also that support network, a place where you can come and feel comfortable, feel supported, meet other people. And, I think for us, that's something we really want to lean into going forward, is making Guitar Center a super welcoming place and not just a fun place to go play instruments and maybe buy something. So, I think that's a contribution we can help make to the future of music. And your inspiration, your designs are making those contributions every day and inspiring people. But going back to that retail experience, do you have a Guitar Center experience?
Yeah, I've been in more Guitar Centers than most, probably, because when I was flipping used and vintage guitars, that would be one of my stops. So what's been coming in? What do we have here? In the vintage room in Hollywood, I was always there, seeing what the latest acquisitions were, and so I had some really interesting finds. And a lot of the times they stop you in your tracks when you're walking through. So one that comes to mind is in the Hollywood Vintage Room, I saw on the wall what appeared to be a Gibson 160E, like the Beatles J160E acoustic guitar with the pickup. But I looked at it closer and it said Epiphone on the headstock, but it was the Gibson headstock shape. I was like, what the heck? Did somebody modify this? So I'm looking this thing over, and I was asking the guys there, like, what do you think this is? Nobody really knew. So I was like, well, I guess I got to buy it, right? So I brought it home, and then this is before I worked at Gibson, so I had a contact here who helped me look it up in the ledger book and sent me the listing, and sure enough, it's a Epiphone J160E. Like, I don't know why or why it existed or anything like that, but to have that with the guitar now it's something. Yeah. Now it's a real custom ordered vintage instrument made in Kalamazoo. So that was pretty cool. Although I don't expect to find something like that all the time. You never know what you're going to find walking into a Guitar Center, and that's kind of the theme of that.
I love that. And particularly in the used and vintage area, it's a total treasure hunt. And I'm in our stores all the time, and every once in a while you just go, what is that? Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Well, when you think about our collaboration, we've obviously been working together since the 60s, but I feel like the relationship's probably stronger than it has ever been. What do you hope when you see your brand reflected in a Guitar Center? Like, what can we bring to the table? What are your aspirations for Guitar Center?
Yeah, I think one, you're doing a great job. I think a lot of it is in process. That from what I've seen, and the big one for me is the emotional connection with the instrument that you create every day. Like that's an incredible moment, and again, builds culture, builds community. What I would love to see is, not necessarily a vintage 1959 Les Paul Standard, but maybe a Murphy Lab Les Paul Standard in the hands of a young artist. You mentioned, having a more casual, community-oriented atmosphere, but like that's the type of moment that young kid will never forget. And so, doing something like that where we're taking something that is, purely, or they think is purely aspirational, and actually getting into their hands, it's just an incredible thing that you have the opportunity to do. Not that, you're going to turn a sale on that, but you are going to probably have a customer for life. That's how I feel.
That inspiration.
Yeah.
I've seen so many stories of people who will literally travel thousands of miles just to visit Hollywood and just spend the day and have that experience. And I think that's a great idea, right? How do we not just have that experience, but also blow someone's mind and have that be something that sticks with them for their lifetimes?
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for spending so much time with me today. This Gibson is an important brand to me. I love Gibsons. My father loved Gibsons, and so it's been part of my life for my lifetime. And I'm so happy to have someone at the helm here, directing product that cares so much, is such a student of history, and has a vision for where to take this forward. If you're sitting in this seat 15 years from now, what will have changed?
That's a heavy question. I think Gibson will always be there. I'm pretty certain of that. It's survived a lot over the years. There were some times.
I think that is certain.
Yeah. For me personally and professionally, obviously I would love to be here. I'm having a great time currently. How I could be having an even better time is to grow. I think we've remained around the same size for a long time. So finding more access points, more opportunities globally, especially, like we are a global brand, we need to be thinking more globally. So my hope is that 15 years from now, what will have changed is we've got a larger global presence. We've got a much more integrated national presence, and that music has mattered more than ever. That would be the hope.
That's it.
Yeah.
Great vision. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Matt Koehler, everybody. Thank you, Matt, for joining us. It's been such a great conversation. Huge fan of Gibson. Have been playing it my whole life. My father had been playing his whole life. So what you do is important to music, but it's also important to me. Thank you for your stewardship. Thank you for joining us. Great to meet you.
Thank you for everything. Thanks, Gabe.